Should I invest in the safest bet, like Bitcoin, or spread my money through altcoins and don't put all the eggs in the same basket? Charts don't lie, and the actual winner will be revealed here, even if it's not what you are expecting.
Show my point of view here is that, normally September's mark changes in the Bitcoin dominance. Like whatever's going on before September, it kind of seems like we see a shift around that September timeframe. If we're going down, we start going up. If we're going up, we start going down. And so what I'm expecting is, if I were to maybe potentially draw a path here for the dominance, I'm kind of expecting the dominance to continue its breakout and actually go near that 60% level by potentially, September plus or minus 1 month or so. At that point, I kind of expect it to pull back. I mean, that'll likely be around the time that a lot of people finally put on, they put on their Bitcoin maxi hat. And normally once everyone starts to agree, then you get a more substantial pullback. But I don't think we're at that point yet. I still think that we need to see the dominance break out and go a lot higher. Now, one thing, Gareth, that we talked about a little bit is that when we break the range high on the dominance back in 2018 and when we broke it in 2019, in both cases, we actually had about a 1 week period where we didn't move, right? Where the dominance basically just stayed flat for about 1 week. And then the next week, it went up by like 3 or 4 points. In 2018, we went from 50% to 54% in 1 week. And in 2019, we went from 64% to 68% in 1 week. So I'm still, I'm sitting here thinking like, within the next, maybe even this week, but within the next couple of weeks, like I wouldn't be surprised if we see a more substantial breakout on the Bitcoin dominance to 50%, 51%, 52%, and maybe even just a bit higher. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so just flipping over to my screen here, and we can talk a little bit about that. So what's interesting is what I'm getting from you is that you're saying you think that we'll go up to about 60% in terms of dominance. And I think last week we talked about the charts and what it showed. And the beauty of it is there's this awesome trend line that is right at 60%, right? So am I correct? And that's what you're thinking it's headed towards?
Yeah, let me show my screen here for a minute because there's a couple different ways to look at this. The first way to look at it is in every cycle, in every market, we see Bitcoin bleed for a while and then it gets a rally. And it's in that rally that we break the range high on the Bitcoin dominance. If we were to overlay, the half of the dominance rally was accompanied by Bitcoin going up, and then the other half of the dominance rally was accompanied by Bitcoin going down. And then ultimately what happened is that, the market sort of leveled off for a few months and then the actual bottom was found, right? So that's what we saw back then. And one thing that I think is interesting today is we actually saw a very similar thing, right? Bitcoin rallied for the first 4.5 months of the year. The dominance broke 49% back in April. And now I think we're in this process where the dominance is continuing to go up as Bitcoin goes down. Now, fundamentally, the reason why I think that's happening is because there's this move from like higher risk altcoins to lower risk cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And so for a long time, people just convert their altcoins back to the safety of Bitcoin, right? It's not to say that Bitcoin can go lower. It's just that it's safer than insert, random altcoin, right? And so those conversions can keep the valuation of Bitcoin propped up. But at some point, I think there's just no longer sufficient liquidity in the altcoin market to support valuations, these higher Bitcoin valuations, right? And so then people are converting back to Bitcoin, but there's still so much sell pressure on Bitcoin side that it just keeps coming back down. Now, I think where the issue is, well, what happens when all the liquidity is dried up, right? And if you look really closely here, there is a period here where the Bitcoin dominance rally was this July rally right here, right? And you can see that this was something I don't really know that I've even talked about this before. But
So Bitcoin is still holding through the conversions of liquidity from the altcoin markets as these change through time. But according to Ben, soon there won't be enough liquidity to keep holding these prices. And this is what happens next.
From this low here to this low, it was about a 12% drop, right? And then after this 12% drop, that's where the dominance rally happened back in 2018. And if you look today, you can kind of see a similar thing, right? Like this low here to this one was also about a 12% drop. And that is where the dominance rally started, right? So there is, there's a risk that we still have to come back down And as you said, Gareth, I mean, there's of course a risk that Bitcoin does in fact put in a new low.
Yeah. Do you foresee a portion of, like, let's say a time in the future where Bitcoin dominance goes above 60%? Like, I mean, 60% is the target based on your data, based on the charts. But I mean, let's say 5 years from now, is Bitcoin like the biggest thing, and then you just have one or two little alts that make up 10% of the market and everything else has gone to zero?
Many experts still say that fundamentals take little to no place in the crypto markets and are driven mainly by liquidity. That's how cycles are created and not just based on news. When more liquidity comes into Bitcoin or altcoins, they go up. And if it's taken from the crypto markets to pay bills or buy Christmas presents, they go down. News can deepen the bottoms or extend the cycles a bit. Still, for example, if we look at the last bull market in Bitcoin in 2021, people like Gareth said it also happened because investors saved more money during the COVID period since they couldn't get out or travel. In some countries like the US, they also get incentives from the government. When banks started to collapse in the past few months, trust in the traditional banking system started to shake. We saw liquidity being put into crypto as a safe bet, and that helped Bitcoin pump. But will that money stay in? Or will it be taken and deposited in banks again if they recover the trust from small investors? This takes us to the next big topic: using Bitcoin as a digital gold option versus Ethereum as a use case solution like silver. What do they predict to happen and who will win? Bitcoin or altcoins?
Silver is more volatile than gold, so Bitcoin is less volatile and Ethereum is more volatile than Bitcoin. But also Ethereum has a use case, right? Bitcoin, there's you don't really see a lot of stuff being built on top of that. So I think those, my guess is, and again I could be wrong here, but my guess is the future is those two make up probably 80% plus of the overall market, and then you might have some of these other smaller coins kind of carving out their niches, but it's hard to know. I mean, and now we have the biggest news in the last week was that BlackRock filed for ETF, right? And so the question is, and I think the big question, we saw a little rally in crypto because of this, is does this mean because there's such a mega financial institution?
So I mean, it's interesting because we go through these periods where no one can ever imagine the blue chips taking up such a majority of the market share. And then that's what ends up happening. And then once we get to that point, everyone will say that altcoins are dead and they'll never recover. And then we get alt season. It's interesting how we ebb and flow.
If you want to watch the full interview, click here and we're back tomorrow for more Daily Crypto. Bye.